time for a new creation. I've done it. It's alive, I tell you. It's alive. I give you one can feel. Oh, Captain Stein, come to me, my precious. Come to me. Welcome to Splice and Dice. Hi Not Board Gamers, and welcome back to Not Board Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. So, as you can see from the opening intro, I managed to create a wonderful new pet. I spliced him and I diced him together because, of course, in today's video we're going to be having a look at an in-depth review of Splice and Dice by Chip Theory Games for Too Many Bones, and just have a look at the various components and what this adds to the gameplay. Now, of course, if you checked my unboxing video, which was online about a week or so ago, you'll see not only did I unbox Splice and Dice, but I also unboxed Dart and the Labrats Gearlox expansions, which came with my Splice and Dice package. Of course, today we're not going to be having a look at those. We're just going to be looking at Splice and Dice. Now, obviously, I would normally do some kind of unboxing and some kind of content overview, but I think the there we go. Look at that. I think that the unboxing video shows you everything that you get inside the box. What we're going to have a look is today is at how Splice and Dice absolutely changes the game of Too Many Bones. And for example, did you know that in this one small box there are two separate ways to play Splice and Dice? And as long as you're using components from your original Too Many Bones or Undertow, or you can add even the 40 days on there, 40 Days of Daylore expansion into there as well, you can create these wonderful behemoth kind of mystic tyrants that you can battle in one game, or you can build them up throughout your usual game of Too Many Bones and battle them at the end of that game, or you can just create them and throw them in whenever you feel like it. Look, there's a lot to go at in this review of Splice and Dice, so without much further ado, let me take you on a tour of Splice and Dice by Chip Theory Games and how it is going to change how you play Too Many Bones forever. So in Splice and Dice by Chip Theory for Too Many Bones, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are two ways to play the game. First mode is called the Build a Tyrant mode, and that is effectively a mode that you will incorporate into your standard game of Too Many Bones. You will not define a tyrant at the beginning, however you will build a bespoke tyrant as you battle through your normal game of Too Many Bones, which is just fantastic. You know, already there was lots of variability in Too Many Bones. No two games ever played exactly the same way twice. What Build a Tyrant mode allows you to do is completely change the landscape there and create a new tyrant every single time you play, which is fantastic. The other mode is called the Nobulus Apprentice Program, and that is a standalone game almost, where you will play a separate game where you are building, where you're playing kind of people within Nobulus's laboratory, and you are building up a tyrant that you will then kind of send to a proving grounds at the end of the Nobulus Apprentice program. So you will battle that tyrant against other baddies, and if successful, you can then record that tyrant to keep on a sheet and incorporate into any future game of Too Many Bones. Not only that, but there are, I believe, 5 new tyrants as well within the box of Splice and Dice for you to just roll ready-made tyrants that you can incorporate into your existing game, as well as there are 77 1-point baddies, 4 3-point crown baddies, 4 3-point mech baddies, 8 5-point baddies, and 7 20-point baddies. So that is just absolutely fantastic. That's a load of content that you're already getting. However, we're not here to talk about the main game of Too Many Bones and, you know, these new tyrants that you can use for it. We're here to talk about the Build a Tyrant mode and the Nobulous Apprentice mode. And the first up is the Build a Tyrant mode for Too Many Bones. So when you're setting up your game with Too Many Bones using the Splice and Dice and the Build a Tyrant mode, more or less everything is going to be set up almost exactly as you would normally set it up. Here you can see I've got the kind of battle map with the initiative meter, I've got some of my health chips, I've set up my adventure map with the day counter, and I've also got my gear lock set up. Obviously you're also going to set up your encounter cards as well. Now normally you would set up an encounter cards and then you would deduct for the number of days of your adventure, and then depending on which baddie you're choosing obviously, or which tyrant you're choosing, and then you would deduct a number of cards off that and add some pre-built tyrant and encounter cards. However, setting it up is slightly different in the Build a Tyrant mode, because what you got here is a little chart that's on page 13 which says how many general encounter cards you need to put in, and whether you want to make it a short campaign, a medium campaign, or sorry, a short game, a medium game, or a long and hard game. And it says here, so I'm going to set this up for a medium game, which is going to be a 10-day campaign, and for that I need 3 general encounter cards. So of course the first thing I've got is my 3 day cards. Now there are a number of these that you get in the base game, and then of course if you've got the Age of Tyranny expansions, you can then get you can then get more of those. So I've got my 3 day cards, and then it says here for a medium game, which is going to be a medium difficulty, I then need 3 general encounter cards, and there we go, I've got 3 general encounter cards. What it then asks me to do is then add 5 tyrant encounter cards. Now the game, or Splice and Dice, comes with 10 new Build a Tyrant encounter cards. So what you do is randomly shuffle those, and you will draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into my deck, taking away the first 3 cards of course, shuffle those, and this will then create my encounter deck for the days that I am travelling through Daylor and Obendar and wherever it is and battling against my Build a Tyrant. So that's a minor change that you've got there in terms of your encounter deck. What we've also got as well, for the baddie card, we have just a singular Build a Tyrant card with nothing on there yet, because we don't know what our tyrant's going to look like. Look, there are some other changes which I'll show you now, how we lay out the table and the game area itself. So what you'll notice in the game of Splice and Dice, in the box of Splice and Dice, are 2 new mats. The first one is the Build a Tyrant mat itself, and the second one is the laboratory. You're going to set these up next to your main game mat. And the first thing you're going to do is use one of these Tyrant chips here. Now what these Tyrant chips do is that focusing? There we go. Is they just represent your Tyrant. There we go. And we're going to place one in there. The next one we're going to place in the middle of the laboratory mat as well, so that indicates where your tyrant is. We're also going to have some of these kind of plastic pegs as well. Now because I've set this up as a medium game, which is 10 days long, the first thing I'm going to do is just place the peg in the day kind of counter there. Then if we look on the tyrant mat, what you do is you place a peg in the topmost position of the extra baddies track, which is this one here. You place a peg in the leftmost position of the attack form track as well, which is this one here, and you also place a peg in the leftmost position of the preferred target track. So you can see that there are no extra baddies. They're attacking as a melee attack first, and they will always go for the strongest gear lock. And there we go, as I said there, you've already set the number of days, that's it. And that is really it in terms of setting up the Tyrant mat. We have some other dice as well. First of all, we have the stat die, which when we start defining our stats, they will dictate, for example, health could be start on a 2, and maybe it goes up to a 6 eventually as you're building the Tyrant. Maybe it goes beyond that, so you can then stick another dice in there. And it's going to be the same for your defense, for your attack, and for your initiative as well. And here we have some kind of dice which will dictate your baddie's kind of bespoke skills as well, and you will put those in there as and when you uncover them or create them throughout the game. And then down here are some of the skills that you will take from chips of other baddies. So maybe you managed to get this this Shadow Keeper. He's a 5-point baddie, and you've managed to defeat them and splice him successfully, and then you would put him in there and you could have those skills, and that's how that works as you go through. And then we have the lab mat, which is where you're going to start putting your baddies when you defeat them and start creating ways to actually improve your stats and improve your skills. However, we'll come to that as the gameplay goes through. This is how you set those up. Those dice are going to be put to one side for the moment. Those dice are going to be put to one side for the moment, and we're going to set these up next to our normal battle mat in Too Many Bones. So far, only a few differences between setting up a normal game of Too Many Bones. The final thing we're going to do is take our 10 laboratory dice. Now, there are 10 of these here, and they're all those lovely heat printed dice. And what we're going to do is we're going to put those in the cloth bag that comes with the game, because you're going to start drawing dice out of this game as you build your Tyrant. And there we go, those go to one side there, and that's a different addition there to the game itself. That adds an element of almost randomness and kind of variability as you're building your Tyrant up throughout the Build a Tyrant game. But again, we'll come on to how those lab dice work in a moment. You see, what you also get in the box as well is some new chips, as well as 3-point chips and various Tyrant chips. There are some new 1, 5 and 20-point baddies. Now you can tell these because these have this distinctive green colour around the edge, so you know that these are from the game. And what you need to do is first of all create your stack of 1 and 5-point baddies that are from Splice and Dice, and draw 2 5-point baddies and 2 1-point baddies. And these are going to create something called your initial splice. And what we're looking at doing on these is we are looking for the highest stat numbers between the 5 chips that we can then place dice into our Tyrant mat to kind of dictate the strength or the relative strength of there. So first of all, if we look at health, we can see that the highest health there is 7. So I'm going to take a 6 dice and a 1 dice, and my baddie's starting health for the game is 7. Then if we look at initiative, we can see there's a 4, a 4, a 3 and a 5. So we'll take the 5 dice and create the initiative there. Then if we look at shields there, we've got a 2 shield and a 2 shield. So that is 2 that goes in there. And the final one that we're going to look at is our attack stat. We've got 2 attack, 1 attack, 1 attack and a 3 attack. So this baddie starting off with an attack of 3, a defense of 2, an initiative of 5 and a health of 7. What we're also going to do as well to dictate which baddies we're going to use in this game is we're going to take the bottom of each chip, as you know, dictates what kind of baddie class it is, and we're going to put a peg in the space at the bottom to dictate what it is. So first of all we have red, then we have the blue, then we have the light blue, then we have the purple, and then we also have the orange and the green. And oh my god, that means my stack of baddies is going to be created from more or less every single chip type that there is. These are going to be some big stacks of baddies, and you can see this is the very first phase. We've not even gone to the first day of our adventure. So what I'm going to do now is create the baddies chips and then show you a little bit of how the Build a Tyrant mode works as you build it into your Too Many Bones game. So gameplay in Too Many Bones, where you're using the Build a Tyrant mode from the Splice and Dice, continues in more or less the same vein as it would do in a normal Too Many Bones game. Your adventurers will be daring doing as they travel through the wastelands and try to find the Tyrant. However, there are a couple of significant points where it changes. First thing, at the beginning of each day, what you're going to do is draw 4 lab dice from the lab dice bag, and these are these dice here, and you're going to roll them. And then, if there's more than one of you playing, the person who's going is going to take a dice and it's going to place it on the mat, and then you can do that and just follow that round. And that is effectively what you do at the beginning of each and every day. Now, on its own, it doesn't look much, but what these are going to do is they are then going to define the areas on your Tyrant mat which you are going to increase on that particular go at the end of the day, after you've had your Tyrant encounter, after you've had your baddie encounter, or combat encounter, or even a peaceful encounter. Let's have a look at how that works now. So you can see the beginning of something happening in the laboratory here. At the start of each day, you're going to roll those 4 lab dice and you're going to put them in your laboratory mat. And that is then going to create, effectively, what skills your bad guy or your Tyrant is going to start increasing if something else happens. That something else happening is filling these 4 holes which represent tanks. You're going to fill those tanks with every single encounter card that you come up to, be that a combat encounter or even a peaceful encounter. Let me show you how that works. So filling up the tanks happens after each and every encounter. So at the end of the day, you've established your dice at the beginning of the day, and we're going to fill up the tanks at the end of the day. So how you do that is, obviously most days end in some kind of combat encounter. There are some that don't, and we'll come on to how that works in a little while. However, what you will do is your very first baddie that you defeat, so say these are my stack of defeated baddies. Of course, they wouldn't be stacked, they would be on my battle mat. As and when I defeat my very first baddie, I'm going to place him in slot number 1. The game progresses. You will then defeat your second baddie. He'll be in slot number 2, third baddie in slot number 3, and fourth baddie in slot number 4. And that happens for each and every combat encounter that you have. However, if it is a peaceful encounter and there is no combat to be had, what you will do is you're going to create a baddie queue, baddie points, depending obviously on which day you're at, and then you're going to take from the top of that stack. So say, I don't know, I'm on day 6, and I've got 2 baddies, so I have a stack of 12. That will give me 2 5 points and 2 1 point baddies. I will take the first 5 point, put him in tank 1, second 5 point in tank 2, the third one, which is 1 point, in tank 3, and the fourth one, which is a single point, in tank 4. Once you've filled all those, because sometimes you have more than 4 baddies that you're fighting against, once you've filled them all the rest go back into the discard stack, and that's how you would do it. So combat is for everyone that you defeat, and in the order that you defeat them, you put them in the tanks. And on a peaceful encounter, you create a baddie stack or a baddie queue, and you put them in each and every one. Any superfluous ones that you've had, or ones that you've defeated after this, or an extra in the baddie queue stack, then you just put them to one side. And that's how you fill your laboratory. So, we've defined what skills we're going to do. We've filled the laboratory. We've defined our starting splice on our Tyrant. What happens though? How do we increase those stats throughout the game? So we loaded both mats up. The lab dice going obviously at the beginning of the of each day, and then the tanks get filled after your encounter. Then what you do after you've finished your encounter and before you collect your rewards is we're going to go around in clockwise order, starting on the dice between 1 and 2, and seeing if that has any effect on our Tyrant. So as we can see here, we've got a health die stat, and he's currently got a health of 7. There's a 7 there, but there's an 8 there. So that's between those 2 die. Between that die, it's those two baddies there. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase his health by 1, and he's now got a health of 8 because that was higher than the 7 that was on there. Then we have between these chips here, we have the extra baddie, which is this here. Now, had any of these got the extra baddie symbol on, we would have progressed that by 1, but as you can see, they don't. Neither of those have that symbol on their chip, so we don't progress that. Then we move around, always clockwise, and we look at the attack dice that's been placed in here. This, Tyrant's currently got an attack of 3, this has got an attack of 1, but this one's got an attack of 4, so we're going to progress that by 1 as well. And you only ever progress it 1, you don't progress it to the number, you only ever progress it 1. And here, what we got is our attack form, or sorry, our target form, and the target die, sorry. Currently, he goes after the strongest. Now, if any of these have a target that's to the right of where the peg currently is, then again we progress it by 1. That one's got strongest, so that's no good. That has got the double, so we're going to move that by 1. And you can see that progressively, our Tyrant has the opportunity to increase his skills and his stats throughout the game. Now, there are a couple of dice I want to point out. The first one is this skill dice here. So, had this skill dice, I don't know, been placed there, what I would do is I would choose one of these baddies to put in my skill slots, and that means that my Tyrant would then gain those skills. Obviously, if you've already got the skills, then you can't do that. So you can place a 20-point baddie in any of these. You can place a 5-point baddie in point 1 and 2, and you can place a 1-point baddie in only point 1. So let's have a look. I've got no skills whatsoever. He's a 5-point baddie. He's a 1-point baddie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that chip for stout and raiding, and I'm going to put that there, and suddenly my baddie's got a couple of skills there as well. There's one other as well, one other dice, which is this die here, this face here, which effectively is your Splice Tyrant die face. And what happens is, had that been rolled and I'd put that there, what I would then do is look for any of these colours here that I don't already have a Splice Tyrant die for, and here we go. You can see that red's on both. I could choose purple, and I can get that particular die, and I can put that in there, so he will roll that at the end battle on every go. You can only have 3 in there, so if you want to replace them, obviously, you know, if you get more than 3, and you're very lucky if you do that, you just take one out if you wanted to and put another one in. And that's how your Tyrant is going to build up throughout the game. Obviously, at the start of every round, you clear these, put them in your defeated baddie stack, put the dice back into the lab dice mat, and you start the day again by rolling 4 die, putting them in the places, and continuing your way on your adventures in Too Many Bones. And that's exactly how you create your Tyrant or your bespoke Tyrant as you play the Build a Tyrant mode of Too Many Bones using Splice and Dice. I think you can see from that there are so many variables here. There are so many things in play as your chips will dictate what your Tyrants, increases are going to be as you get different Tyrant die to kind of roll as your Tyrant is battling you. And the best thing to do if you get to the stage where you're actually battling the Tyrant and you like the Tyrant is record the Tyrant in your little book that you get, which is full of blank pages for you to record your creations. Of course, then go and share them online at the Too Many Bones Community Hub, the forums on Facebook, etc. Because we are all going to be creating vastly different Tyrants. There's not a lot of kind of complexity to adding this to a normal game of Too Many Bones. It slots right in, it makes it a joy and a breeze to play, and as you can see the variables are just huge and massive, but the Build a Tyrant mode is but one mode in Splice and Dice. We're now going to talk about the Nobulus Apprentice program. So, you think you know Too Many Bones then, do you? It's a game about gearlocks, battling the baddies, and ultimately defeating a Tyrant. Well, the other game in Splice and Dice, away from Build a Tyrant, the Nobulus Apprentice program is going to take everything you know about Too Many Bones and turn it on its head, because there are no gearlocks in the Nobulus Apprentice program. What? Yeah, absolutely. NAP, the Nobulus Apprentice program, is not about the gearlocks. It's about the kind of laboratory assistants working for Nobulus diligently and hard-working, trying to create new Tyrants for Nobulus to send out to battle the Gearlocks. I know! There isn't a single Gearlock in the Nobulus Apprentice program. Look, it's a game that is kind of solo or cooperative for up to 4 players, and what you do together, you're going to create these new Tyrants. Exactly how do you do that then? So pretty much like the entire package of Splice and Dice, the NAP, the Nobulus Apprentice program, is in itself a 2-part game. The first part of the game is largely a card-driven, almost tableau management game, where you will use this deck of cards, or you will deal out this deck of cards, and there will be various tasks and setbacks and opportunities in there which will act as a timer in the game, driving progress forward. And also, if you accumulate too many of them, that's it, that's a day over. And effectively, you will have kind of a 7-day period, maximum of 7-day period, to start splicing chips and using dice onto your Tyrant to make him as strong, him or her should I say, as strong as possible to send out into a proving ground scenario, which is the second part of the game. Because once you've completed all the tasks in the first part of the NAP, then you will send your Tyrant out to battle against other baddies, and these baddies are generally defined at the beginning and they help you kind of your initial splice to battle those baddies. If he or she is triumphant and wins that battle, then that's great, you've won the game. But let me tell you, this isn't an easy game at all. In fact, it's deceptively deep and challenging. Let me show you how it works. See, one of the first things that's going to happen when you start your game of the Nobulus Apprentice program in Splice and Dice is you're going to choose an assistant to help you. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 assistants, and each one has slightly different abilities which will act as some kind of boon as you play the game. For example, if we look at Marriage, there we go, kind of a handsome fella, Marriage. It says here, on your turn, if there are 5 of any one type of knob card in play, you may end one of them. Now, as I said at the beginning, the knob cards actually act as a timer in the game, so that's really useful. Or maybe we look at Moog, not a synthesizer. It says that the tank limit is increased by 4, and we'll come on to how the tank limit works. So there we go. What happens in Nobulus Apprentice program is you start off and you get an assistant. So, we've chosen our assistant, and for this assistant for this time, we're choosing Gorf. And as you can see, Gorf, he looks like some kind of 1970s working men's club comedian. He's the office kind of joker, if you like. The next thing we're going to do, and as I mentioned about the assistants, is they're going to give you a boon on each go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use this deck of knob cards, no laughing at the back, to lay out our initial cards and start being able to start tracking and timing the game, because the knob cards are going to act effectively as your timer. Now, there are 3 types of knob cards. The first one is the task cards, and these come with requests, which will eventually turn into demands. If you fulfill either request or the demand, you will get the reward, and if you don't fulfill it, you will have to work to some form of penalty. And the next type is what is called a setback, and these got this red skull on the front. And essentially what these are, they're never good cards, and it tells you, always gives you some kind of detrimental action and what you need to do to actually end this setback card. The final one are opportunity cards, and this has got this green tree on here, and what these do is they give you little boons. So sometimes they come out and there's nothing to fulfill and you will get an action to do straight away, a positive action straight away. Other times you have to fulfill it before you can flip it over and then fulfill your action. And that's how those 3 cards work individually, but what we'll do, as I say, they act as a timer in the game. We'll set up the hand and show you how you set it out for your first games. There is an easy mode and a more challenging mode, but the easy mode is still challenging. So laying the cards out is an absolute breeze. What you're going to do for your first games is you're going to find the first task, the first opportunity, and then the first setback card, and shuffle these again. And we're going to then lay these out face up. Doesn't matter which order you lay them out in, 1, 2, and 3. And here we go. We can see the first setback card is a fudged time card, and what this says is that when work day, and that means every day that you're working in there, opportunities drawn today are immediately discarded, and opportunities, as I say, are a benefit. However, if you fulfill 2 tasks in the same day, you can get rid of this card, which means your opportunities aren't discarded. So this is an opportunity card. There's no, on this particular one, there's no prerequisite here. You can just flip it straight over to the action. It says rebranding, and what it says is turn a task to its punishment. Usable once per day, turn sideways to indicate use. Okay, so that means you turn that card sideways. And what that means is these are task cards here. And you will get, they will start out on the request side, which is generally the, when I say easy, comparatively easy side. So if you can place a baddie chip on here with Hardy, then you can complete this task and get the reward there, which is slot a baddie from this card directly into your Tyrant skill area. However, at the end of the day, if you've not completed this, these then flip to their demand side, which becomes more difficult. 2 baddies with Hardy or Poison, the chips need to be put on there. Again, if you manage to do that, you still get that reward. However, if on the 3rd day you haven't completed it, then they will always turn to the punishment side. And here we go. Start of the day, discard any baddies with Hardy or Poison from your Tyrant skill area, and that's this area here. So as you can see, the kind of the tasks, they give you some opportunities, and there is, on some of them, there are rewards, and not on every one of them, but the only way that you can effectively do them is by sacrificing some of the baddies that you're going to draw, or some of the lab dice that you're going to draw, or some other function that will inhibit your game in one way or another. So that's it. The initial 3 cards, 1 task, 1 setback, and 1 opportunity are set out. With the deck of cards, you're going to have space for 8 cards in total, plus a discard pile. Right, let's move on to what we do on our initial splice for the Tyrant. So, using the yellow pegs, which we used in the Build a Tyrant mode, first thing we're going to do is set up the laboratory mat. And if you see on the laboratory mat, there's 2 areas. There's one that says progress and one that says day. So the first thing you're going to do is put a peg in the far left starting space of progress, which should be 0, and you're going to put one in the far left day space as well, which is going to have the number 1 on top and then a number 4 underneath it, and that number 4 dictates your tank level for the day, your tank limit for the day. And what that means, your tank limit is effectively, on day 1 it's 4, so the total of the points of all the baddies that I put in here cannot be more than 4 on day 1. On day 2 it moves to 6, it moves to 8, so I can have maybe 5 and 3 1s in there, and then on day 3 it moves to 12, so you can see how that progresses. You can start building up and strengthening your baddies there. And then we have the progress and day, and I'll talk about how that works in a wee while. Then on your Tyrant mat, you're going to start off doing more or less exactly the same thing as you started off. We're going to put a peg in the top of the extra baddies, peg to the far left of the attack form, peg to the far left of who you're going to attack. And we're going to leave this blank for this game. So this is your progress counter, which works on the Build a Tyrant mode, but it doesn't work on the Nobulus Apprentice program. And that's the initial start of the mat. We're going to fill some pegs in here when we've drawn some baddies, and also put the stats in there. But that's what you do on the mat. Right, let's look at splicing, the initial splice for this particular Tyrant. So the aim of the game is going to be to go through 7 days, building your Tyrant up each and every day, and then you're going to put him into a proving ground scenario at the end against the Proto Tyrant, who has a randomise function, and that's literally which dice he draws. But you need to define the starting stats for your Tyrant. So pretty much like you did on the Build a Tyrant mode, you've got these chips that come with the game itself, with the Splice and Dice game itself, and I'll say these are dictated to by the green on there. And you're going to draw 2 1-point chips and 2 5-point chips. So here we go. Let's see what we've got there. So we have, we have those there. And again, what you're going to do is use the stat dice to build this up. So we can see that the highest health here is 6. So we would put a 6 health there. Then we can see that the highest defense on any one of them we've got is a 2. There are 2 2s there, so 2 is the highest. So therefore, we will put a number 2 into the defense there. Then we're going to look at the attack, and attack is 2 1 1 2. So it's got the highest there on attack is 2. And finally, the initiative, and the highest initiative, we've got a 3, a 2, a 2, and a 4. So the initiative is 4. So you can see, again, pretty much like Build a Tyrant, how that works. Now, unlike in Build a Tyrant mode, where you're probably going to discard these chips or put them back into your stack, you're going to put these chips to one side, because when you get to the final battle against the Proto Tyrant, you're also going to use the 4 chips which dictated your initial splice as your baddie queue, with the 5s on top, the 1s underneath, and then the Proto Tyrant underneath that. And that particular stack will then form your baddie queue for the final battle, if you actually get there. Oops. So, for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll realise I didn't actually set what baddie types this particular Tyrant is going to have. So, at the bottom of each chip, pretty much like on Build a Tyrant, you can see the baddie type. It's these colours here, and each chip has a different configuration. I've gone through those starting chips, and as you can see, I filled in my baddie types, and quite frankly, they've got nearly every type of baddie. So that's when you're going to take it into the main game about what kind of baddies this Tyrant is going to actually have in its stacks of baddies to start the game. So the final thing to do now to set up the game is to create your baddie stacks for the game. So out of the remaining Splice and Dice chips that you've got, you're going to take 5 1 point, you're going to take 5 5 points, and you're going to take 3 20 points. Then out of your standard Too Many Bones or Undertow game, you're going to take a stack of 15 1 point baddies, 15 5 point baddies, and 2 20 point baddies. And all you're going to do is then mix them all together to create a new stack where your Splice and Dice baddies will be mixed into your standard game baddies. There we go, there's the single point stack just happening there. 1 2 3 4. And you will do this for your 5s and your 20s, and this will effectively create your reserve for the remainder of the game. So the flow of the game is actually pretty straightforward. The first thing you're going to do, apart from on day 1, is you're going to advance the day tracker on the lab mat. On day 1 you don't do that. Then what you're going to do is draw a knob card. So you have 3 cards laid out in your starting kind of tableau here, and we're going to draw 1 more knob card, and this is obviously an opportunity card, as you can see from there. And this says Mobulus is more, have 3 setbacks in play. So to complete this opportunity card, I must have 3 of these type of cards in my tableau here. If I do have 3 setbacks, it says every workday, so that's every day that I'm working, after drawing from the knob deck, you may cycle the card just drawn to the bottom of the deck and draw the next instead. So that's if I have 3 setbacks in play. Now, as you can see, my tableau now has 4 cards, and what's going to happen now I've drawn that knob card, is I'm going to take 2 actions. Once I've taken those 2 actions, I will then draw another knob card, and then read what's on that knob card, then take another 2 actions. As soon as there are 8 cards in your tableau, that's 1 day done, and I'll explain why days are important and what you have to do. So anyway, so that's what happens with the knob cards. Every day you draw, at the start of every day, you draw a card, and then you take 2 actions, then you draw another card. Once it's built up to 8, that's the end of that day, and then the next day begins. And remember, you only have 7 days to build a Tyrant. 7 days, 8 cards, sounds like a lot of time there, but let me tell you, it's not. I'll talk about the actions first, then I'll discuss what we do with these actions, how we integrate them into the game, and why only having 8 cards to work with before your day ends can sometimes be really restrictive. So, in the handy reference sheet that you get with it, it tells you what those actions are. And there are 4 actions that you can take effectively. The first one is to research lab dice or research baddies, and what you can do there with the lab dice is you can get 3 lab dice out of the bag and you roll them in the tray and you set them to one side. And what you can then do with these lab dice once you've set them to one side is use them on your laboratory. I'll come to that in a second. Another action you can take is to research 3 baddies. Now you're going to have a stack of baddies because you set out your initial baddies that you have from the Splice and Dice game plus the extra stack of 15, so you have a stack of kind of 20 baddies of 5 and 20 baddies of the 1 point, and then the smaller stack of 20 points as well. And then you're going to draw up to 3 of those. So let's say what 3 1 point baddies here, what we got. So I have the 3 Splice and Dice baddies. So we have this chip, and this chip, and we're going to place them to one side. So each of those is one action. That means effectively you can carry both those out in one turn and then draw another knob card. However, they're not the only actions you can take. You can then take an action to place a lab dice or place a baddie. and that's where you're going to take the decision to actually place them into your laboratory map, and I'll explain how that works in a second. You can end a request, so if there are any requests that you don't like on the board, you can flip them over to end them, but that takes 2 actions there, and that means that will clear the card for the next day, and that's really important. And then the final one is to perform an action on a card. So some cards have actions like this opportunity card. It says here, turn a task to its punishment. That would take one of my 2 actions per day. Once you've completed your 2 actions, you're then going to draw the next card from your deck of knob cards. But let's have a look how those actions work in a little bit more detail. So I've taken 2 actions. I've drawn and rolled 3 lab dice, and I've taken 3 chips from the baddie stack. Now I've taken 1-point chips here because my tank limit is 4, so the maximum I can fit in there for this day is 4 baddies. So that's my first round done. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another card, and look at that, it's another task card, and this says 2 researched baddies. Now as you can see, I started off with 3 cards. I then drew one on my first day. I'm now on my second day here. Drawn off for my first round. I'm now in my second round here, and I'm already up to 5 cards. That means I only have 3 left now, 3 spaces left. So I can now make choices. What I can do is I take my 2 actions. I use one of my actions to place up to up to 2 dice in the relevant in the lab. So I could place that dice there. And maybe I could place a dice on a card if it required it. It doesn't actually require it, so that's okay. So I've still got 1 placement action left. I'm going to place a baddie somewhere. So let's take this 1-point baddie and place him there, and I'll explain what happens at the end. That's 1 action done. I placed 1 die and 1 baddie. I now have another action. So maybe I want to use that same action again and place 1 baddie with Hardy on this request, but I don't have any baddies with Hardy, so I can't close that request down. However, I can close this request down by placing 2 baddies, 2 research baddies, because I pulled them out already, onto that card. That card will now turn around to its reward side, and this reward says, instant, you may shuffle 2 discarded baddies back into their active stacks. So these baddies I've used here would generally go into the the discard pile. For the ones here, I can now shuffle these back in, which means they go back into my stack somewhere, and that means I can pull them out again for use in the future, because these stacks also act as timers. So that's it. That card has been completed, but it's turned now to its side, and it still takes up a slot. That's my 2 actions done. I'm now going to draw another card and put that there, and it's another task card. And here we go. And this task says, end a setback. So I have to end a setback card, which is one of those here, the red ones, and if I ended that one, I would have to fulfill 2 tasks in the same day, which I fulfilled 1 there, or I would have to have 3. Oh, that's an opportunity, sorry. So that's the only setback card I've got. So I can't end that setback because I've only fulfilled 1 task yet. That task there asks me to end a setback, which I can't fulfill because of that. And to end this one on this particular day, I would then have to put 1 baddie in place with a Hardy on its chip, but of course I don't have any. So I've got 2 actions now. I've drawn my card, 2 actions. Let's use one of those actions to draw 3 more baddies from the stack, and we'll use 1-point baddies. And there we go. So that's one of my actions done, and then my other action is I can do, I can repeat that action if I wanted. I could place another 3 baddies into my research pile. I could re-roll a lab die, or I could place baddies into the laboratory. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. So I can place up to 2 for my second action. So let's place this guy in here, and what else can we do? I can't really play any more baddies. That's my go over. So now I go back and I draw another card. Look. As you can see, that's how the turn works. Until you've drawn enough cards to get to the end of the day. Once you've got 8 cards there, that is it. That is the end of the day. Then we're going to go into the splice action, which I will show now. So, it's the end of the day, and I've done an imaginary thing here where I've filled all 4 tanks and filled the dice in as well. What I'm going to do now is go around this in a clockwise order, and I'm going to see if I can increase my baddie's skills in my Tyrant skills in whatever way. So first of all, I've got this skill dice between tanks 1 and 2. And as you can see here, this this particular chip has got Mischief 1 and Careless, and that one has got Cunning. Now, down here, I don't have any skills at the moment, so that is a definite improvement. So if I took Cunning, which is a 1-point chip, I can put it in the left one only, and suddenly I've progressed the baddie. Now, you must try to progress the baddie at least you must progress the baddie almost every day. If you don't progress him 2 days over, that's it, you've lost the game. And the only way you can progress him is by improving on something that the Tyrant has already got. So then we would move around here, and this is your kind of who you're going to attack here. So we start off on the strongest, looking for the strongest, and then I look at this dice and I have a look between the 2 tanks there, between 2 and 3. Now, of course, I've already moved that there. Only move that skill to there, so I have nothing in this particular one at the moment, and that has got the strongest one, so I haven't progressed that. So that could be classed as a negative splice. In fact, it is a negative splice because I haven't managed to progress. Then we come down here, and we got health, and at the moment my health is at 6, and as we can see here, this is a health of 1, this is a health of 3. That's another negative splice, so I don't get to improve that in any way. And then finally we go here, and here we go, we're moving from range to melee, and you can see that this is a range die, so if any of these have got range, I will move up on my attack form track, and there we go, they both got range, so I'll move that peg 1, and you only ever increase it 1. So to my mind, that is 2 positive splices because I have improved my baddies from melee to range and I've given the skill, and 2 negative splices. Now, if you make just 1 positive splice, that's good. You get to move your progress peg on 1. So you must make at least 1 positive. Then it doesn't matter how many negatives you don't make. However, if you only make a negative and you don't progress it, then you can't move your progress chip on, and that means that you only get 1 more chance as your day increases to then make to not progress your Tyrant. If you don't progress it again, then that's it. You cannot win this part of the game. And that's how you can see this kind of timer taking effect there. So, we can't forget as well, we got our assistants, which are these guys, and these give some kind of special abilities. So for here, on Gorf, it would have done here, on the kind of, throughout the day, turn 1 demand into a request, so I could have reset a card then. So that's the splice done. I've made 2 positive splices, 2 negative splices, I've gained my progress. Let's go back and clear the decks. So again, in a theoretical situation, what I've done here is I've ended this setback and I've ended these 2 tasks. That means I can clear those away for my next day. However, what that actually means is my next day, rather than starting with 3 cards as it was on the first day, I'm now starting with 5 cards. That will give me only 3 turns, so 3 sets of 2 actions before I get to 8 days here. What also happens as well is you're going to take these task cards and you're going to put them to their demand side now. So you can see that the fulfillment requirements of getting those have now increased. Of course, the same rules apply. If I can fulfill this on the demand here, I can get the reward. If not, the very next day, what's going to happen is they're all going to turn to their punishment side, and you're going to have real kind of problems completing them. And then after that, once you've had the day with the punishments, then you will remove them and create more space. But you can see that kind of tableau management and managing these cards is really key. The more of these cards that you can get out of the way, the better chance you have the next day of having more turns to splice your Tyrant. So you're juggling this kind of juxtaposition between wanting to improve your Tyrant, drawing chips, rolling dice, and trying to complete the cards. And that creates such a beautiful and challenging experience. And that is how the game is going to progress. Over each round, you're going to draw a Nobulus card, then you're going to have your 2 actions, and you're going to either draw baddies, you're going to roll dice, you're going to place them, or you're going to end cards, and you're going to have to make that choice to try and get the most out of it. And then, of course, every card that you draw gets you closer to the end of that particular day. Once you've got 8 cards, that's it, that's day over. You clear the deck of any cards that you've done, and then you start all over again, but the time is ticking down. You must try to progress and have at least 1 positive splice every day in your Tyrant. If you don't do that twice, that's it. That's game over. You don't make it to the final battle. So, Talking of the final battle, what happens is, once you get to the final battle, remember, and you've progressed your Tyrant enough over the 7-day period, remember those 4 chips that I set to one side, which were the 5 and the 1 point chips. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to create a baddie stack with those, with the 5 point chips on top, 5 point chips on top, and the 1 point chips underneath, and that's going to be your baddie queue. And then you're also going to get the Proto Tyrant chip as well, and place him at the bottom. He has the randomize ability. Can you see that there? And what that means is any of these Tyrant dice that you didn't use, you're going to place in the cloth bag, draw one out, and that will be the particular Tyrant die that they use for the end battle. You're going to get your battle map from Too Many Bones or Undertow, set it up, put your Tyrant on the board, put the baddies on the board with the baddie queue, and then obviously the Proto Tyrant at the bottom there, and that's it. You're going to fight until the bitter end. If your Tyrant wins, that's great, you've won the game. If not, it may well be that you still create a Tyrant that you want to play more of. So what you can do, pretty much like in Build a Tyrant, is you can take the record sheet and you can add your Tyrant onto this record sheet and keep a record, and then put him into any particular game of Too Many Bones that you want to, or Undertow, and that's great. You know, he's there forever, and you can upload them, I'm certain, online somewhere, and people can share these all over the place. And that is how the Nobulous Apprentice program for Splice and Dice works. Whew, that was quite a journey, wasn't it? Let's have a look at my final thoughts. Wow. So that really is a lot of content that you get there to kind of change your game of Too Many Bones. I don't think many people, when they backed this project, fully appreciated just the amount of gameplay that you were going to get inside the expansion for Too Many Bones, inside Splice and Dice. You know, we knew it was about kind of creating your own tyrants, and we knew a little bit about each game, but we didn't know enough about it, and it took me almost by a total surprise. If we look at the Build a Tyrant mode, you know, I kind of knew what that was going to do anyway, and the fact it was going to create these bespoke tyrants as you played through your standard game of Too Many Bones or Undertow, and then you would fight a bespoke tyrant at the end. I think the real surprise in the box is the Nobulous Apprentice program. I mean, this is as an almost standalone game, because not purely standalone, because you have to use some components from your Too Many Bones or Undertow pack, as it's just created this whole new way of playing Too Many Bones. It's just fantastic. You know, a standard Too Many Bones game is going to take 2 or 3 hours, so you could kind of implement the Build a Tyrant mode into your standard Too Many Bones game, and you may never get to that final battle because you don't have enough progress points. Whereas if you set up Splice and the Nobulous Apprentice program as a standalone game, then what that offers is a completely unique experience that doesn't actually, it means that you can play it for an hour, and whether you win or lose, chances are is you created a tyrant that you may want to use in your Too Many Bones campaign, and that for me is a real surprise. And as I say, I don't think a lot of people knew that. Now, if there are any gripes with the game, let's think. I think first of all, setup and teardown. No matter which game you're playing, whether it's the Build a Tyrant mode or whether it's the Nobulous Apprentice program, it's a bit of a bear because you're getting 2 boxes out there. You've got to get your Splice and Dice box, and of course you've got to get your Too Many Bones or Undertow box out because you're using components from each. Certainly, if you're playing the Build a Tyrant mode, it may be a little bit less of a bear there because you're not getting everything out of here. You're just using certain components. I think playing the Nobulous Apprentice program is the one that is a bit more of a bear because you're using stacks and chips of baddies that are in your Too Many Bones, using the battle mat, using the lane markers, using various other things as well. So it is a bit of a bear, and I think that that may put some people off. Obviously, once the Trove chest is released to Kickstarter backers, where you got all your storage in one place, and I think that is going to be fantastic as well. Rules-wise, the rules, once you get hold of them, they're good, but they are Too Many Bones rules, and what happens with Too Many Bones rules is that they are wide and varied, and they're a lot open to not necessarily interpretation, but lots of variation in there. And whilst the rulebook for Splice and Dice does a very, very, very good job, it can create a little bit of uncertainty in certain areas. So do use the forums, do reach out to Chip Theory Games and people play the game, because I'm sure they will be able to answer you there accordingly. I think one thing that it slightly misses, one thing that would make the Nobulous Apprentice program a really complete experience for me, is if I could also create a Uber Gearlock at the same time to battle against the tyrants that I created. Because You can build a Tyrant in the Build a Tyrant mode or in the Novice Apprentice program, but you're only going to actually battle that Tyrant as a gearlock and right at the very end, obviously when it's when you completed your battle in Too Many Bones. Now, if there was a way to create a fully fledged gearlock that had, you're upping their skills in a similar way to the upping Tyrant skills, then you had a pitched battle at the end of that, I think that would make this a completely rounded package. And I dare say, this is just me spitballing. I can't say that Chip Theory Games have any ideas like that for anything in the future, but I think that would make it fantastic, a way to almost separate the Novice Apprentice program from Too Many Bones, and also then potentially include it in there as well and have a proper pitched battle at the end. Other than that, I don't really have any gripes. I'm so surprised by this package, so enamoured by this package. I can only say that this is absolutely a stone cold recommendation from Not Board Gaming. If you've got Too Many Bones, or if you've got Undertow, and you want to change the way that you play those games forever, then bear in mind that this is an essential purchase. And as I say, you get those extra 5 Tyrants anyway, and the ability to add your own Tyrants ad infinitum there, and just pitch them in your TMB battles or your Undertow battles and have just an absolute blast. So stone cold recommendation from Not Board Gaming. Look, thank you all very much for joining me on this journey. I know it's been a long video, but we did have kind of 2 games that we had to review in one here as well. So yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I'm going to go back in and play some Novice Apprentice program after I've finished this. All that remains for me to say is, do remember you can you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and that's Not Board Gaming, always BORED. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and check out our other videos. Stay safe, stay at home if you can at the moment during this current crisis. And one final thought: if you've got nobody else to play with, there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time.